Tonight's scoreboard, political theater of the absurd. The House votes to extend the Bush tax cuts, but only for the middle class. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi using her final moments in charge to enact her will. But this time, it may have backfired, and your paychecks are on the line. We'll score it all. A power grab by President Obama. He's following orders from his liberal friends and thumbing his nose at Congress. His first order of business, banning all oil drilling in the Gulf. Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal will score how dangerous this can be. Who's up, who's down, and Russia's World Cup coup. America's Nightly Scoreboard starts right now. Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Thanks for joining us. Kicking off tonight, Pelosi's last stand. Now, why schedule a critical vote in the House on an issue that's going to affect every taxpayer when just about everybody knows that a tax hike will fail in the Senate? Was it a gutsy move from a retiring House Speaker who believes she still has a mandate to spend more and tax more? Or was it pure hubris spelled out in graphic, if not particularly poetic language of incoming Speaker John Boehner?
Trying to catch my breath so I don't refer to this this maneuver going on today as chicken crap, all right? But this is nonsense, all right? The election was 1 month ago. We're 23 months from the next election, and the political games have already started trying to set up the next election.
He's getting pretty fired up. Well, Scoreboard thinks Speaker Pelosi's last stand on today's tax vote shows the degree to which political battles inside the Beltway have become detached from what's actually good for the rest of us. Sort of like the general who's willing to send his troops into a losing battle just for the sake of winning another footnote in history books. Now, the fact is that people and businesses are going to get hurt just for the sake of this one last stand on the political battlefield. The longer Speaker Pelosi wastes the time of Congress on pointless battles to increase taxes, the more America's businesses are going to have to pay for it. Even those who favor higher taxes for bigger government must realize that businesses are facing one hell of an accounting problem come January 1st. Businesses now have to gear up for the new year with two sets of books. One set of books assuming that taxes are going to go up, and another set that will assume taxes stay the same. That's a huge extra cost for payroll, and it's happening just as companies were hoping to take advantage of some positive economic developments. So just as the economy is beginning to catch fire, Speaker Pelosi is spitting on the kindling. There's a certain vindictiveness about all this that's unbecoming even by the low standards of current Beltway politics. The election proved that most Americans think the government has enough of our money, period. We need jobs, a lot more than we need higher taxes and income redistribution. Anything that has the potential to hurt job growth right now should be avoided like the plague. Standing up for what one believes is one thing, but blocking the will of the voters and bottlenecking a weak economy just for the sake of another notch on your legislative belt helps no one. Here to score this in more detail for us, Republican Representative Kevin Brady of Texas. And speaking for the small business of America, we have Brett McMahon. He is of Miller and Long Concrete Construction. Good to see you both. Congressman, I'll go first to you. One thing I want to know right off the bat, it was expected that at least 6 Democratic senators, and we can put up their name, were expected to vote no with Nancy Pelosi. That'd be Heath Schuler, Jason Altmaier, Gary Peters, Glenn Nye, Dan Boren, and Joe Donnelly. Now, when it came to the vote, only one voted no, Dan Boren. What changed the mind of these 5 out of these 6 Democrats?
You know, there was a lot of arm twisting, Dave, going on the floor and up to the last minute, so they weren't certain about the outcome. But I don't know how. You know, you not only state you're for extending all the tax cuts for everybody, including small businesses, and you send a letter to the Speaker to that effect, and then later, after the election's over, after what you've promised your voters you would do, you change your mind and vote differently. that one's a pretty tough one to explain back home.
Well, what are you hearing about Harry Reid now? Are you hearing that he is not going to try to bring this up, or that perhaps maybe he will try to bring it up and pass it with some kind of reconciliation measure, the same way he did with health care?
I would imagine that they're looking for more political theater in the Senate as well, and so he'll try some move to push this, but we already know that's dead on arrival in the Senate, and there'll probably be Senate Democrat support. But this was a dumb economic move, as you said at the top of the hour.
Okay, so it is DOA in the Senate still. But let me bring up, as just for our audience, because I know you spent the whole day listening to this, but the arguments of Democrats as to why this would not be a hit on small businesses. I'll get the congressman to weigh in after we play the soundbite and then get the business perspective.
And those 3% of small businesses that might be impacted, because 97% of small businesses in America would get the tax cut, those 3% are populated by very wealthy folks.
So this is just going to affect wealthy folks. Only 3% of small businesses are affected by this. Congressman, how do you respond?
Well, talk about some voodoo math here. The truth of the matter is that they may be counting tax ID numbers, but you tax on taxable income. And 50% of small business income is going to be punished by this tax. So you're taking those who we most depend on to create jobs and get the economy back on track. That's who they're punishing. But again, they're sort of obsessed with the wealthy, and that's why this economy is in such bad shape.
Well, Brett, you don't have a huge billion-dollar enterprise. It's a modestly sized enterprise. Is it going to be hurt by this?
Yeah, because right now we're not quite sure what to do. As you stated in the opening there, you know, the accountants and the payroll people are trying to figure out what to do. There's a lot to do at a year end, you know, and there's a lot of things to close out, things to prepare for. You got W-2s got to issue and all those kinds of things, right, you know, in January. And this certainly doesn't help. And the attitude is the thing that's just amazes.
Are you now going to have to prepare two sets of books, one assuming the taxes will go up and the other assuming they stay the same?
Yeah, and especially for a business like mine that has continuing contracts that'll go, you know, between years and things like that. Yeah, there's absolutely a serious question as to what we're going to be able to do with and reflect those revenues.
Now, Brett, if taxes do go up on incomes over $250,000, over $500,000, even over $1 million, will that affect your business directly? Will it affect the jobs of your employees?
Yeah, absolutely. We've gone through, especially in my industry, I think we've been especially hard hit in construction, about 1.5 years, 2 years now of working for nothing, really. I mean, profits are hopefully only zero. But in fact, you know, everything that we've been seeing has been down. There's almost no margin available to anything. So taking away any more than we might try and make, you know, all new jobs come from margins. It's just the way it is. So if we're allowed to make money, we can hire people and put more people to work. If we can't make money, we're not going to be doing so. It's just that simple.
Although, Brett, I heard a Democratic congressman supporting this bill today saying that he's in business, he has family members in business. They say that taxes don't affect their business. It's just whether there are customers to buy their goods that affect their business.
Well, then pay more voluntarily. That's my response. I mean, you know, if you prefer it. I mean, they wasted. As I was sitting in the green room, I ran some numbers as an employer, how many people, what they make per hour that they wasted doing this today. And I think Nancy Pelosi owes a check to the U.S. Treasury for just over $1 million for wasting the several hours, all the staff time, figured out generally what they make. That's about what it cost, not including heat and light. You know, all those other kinds of expenses that the rest of us have to pay. That's about how much money she wasted today, and now they want more of our money.
Congressman, how many of your constituents are speaking the same language as Brett here?
All of them. And you have to wonder, well, one, there's this arrogance. In the debate today was, we know what's best for small business. But the other point is, wonder how many small businesses like Brett tonight are saying so much for that expansion, so much for rehiring that worker, so much for buying that new piece of equipment. My guess is an awful lot of them.
And you know, Congressman, the fact is, even if you accept the government's numbers, which I don't, that they hope to get 31 to 50 billion a year from extending the taxes, raising taxes on the top tier. What is the government going to do with that that's going to be better than what the private sector could do with that money?
Not a thing. They're going to spend all of it and plus more to expand the size of this government. That's what they've done for 2 years, $625 billion in new taxes. How much went to reduce the deficit? Zero. It all went plus more to a bigger government. They'll do the same.
All right. And Brett, again, when you see that money taken out of the private sector, even if they get that much money, because rich people are famous for hiding money, so it may be hidden somehow, but even if they get the $50 billion from taxes, do you think they're going to do better with it than the private sector could?
Look what they've done, for God's sake. I mean, it's comical. I mean, just reading through the list of all those things we stimulated with $1 trillion. It's insane. I don't care about funding studies for small fish in streams and stuff like that, and neither does the guy that I'm not going to be able to hire because of this. So there's absolutely no way that a government knows better how to spend money for me and my business. I don't know what the business next door needs either. I mean, that guy does, and he could do it. So it's the height of arrogance, these people.
Guys, stay with us if you can. We want to bring in our all-American panel here. We got Matt McCall of Penn Financial, Lee Hawkins of the Wall Street Journal, and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. Well, Leslie, let me start with you. Do you honestly think that the government can do better than the private sector could with that $30 to $50 billion a year they hope to get from the rich folks?
Well, I'll tell you, David, you know I'm a liberal Democrat, but I'm also an owner of two businesses. So I'd like to speak from the point of view of the latter right now, okay? And I have to tell you, they would both be the same. 11 years ago, when I, as a business owner of two small businesses, did not have these tax cuts, I actually fared better than I'm doing now. And does the government and can the government do better? I honestly don't know, but I do know this. Right now, 10 years later, this money was not used to stimulate the economy in the United States. It was not used for job growth and employment in the U.S. It was in Bangalore, India, and it wasn't used to buy American bonds. It was used to buy Turkish bonds. It wasn't used to put in American banks. It was used to put in Kuwaiti and Bahamian and Swiss banks. So it did not do what the authors of it hoped it would do.
That the $800 billion, that's 25 times the amount of money they hope to get from this new tax hike, that $800 billion did nothing to lower the unemployment level. In fact, the unemployment continued to grow with that $800 billion stimulus. So we want to give them more money for a failed policy?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it has not worked in the past, the last couple of years. So why do we keep doing that? And you know as well as I do, David, that the government's not in the business of creating jobs. They're in the business of expanding our economy by helping people with tax cuts, lowering taxes, and let the private sector expand by creating jobs. Any job the U.S. government has ever created has not been sustainable. It's been short-term to build the road, then it's over. That does not help create a long-term sustainable economy. So right now, what we need to do is give that money back to small business owners like myself and Leslie, and let us.
So you want all that money? I figured you were into that. Leslie, he's talking to giving you billions of dollars. Lee, the fact is the tax foundation, certainly some of that money will be spent, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's kept in the private sector, but 2/3 of the money that the government receives would otherwise have gone to capital formation. That is, expanding operations, hiring new workers. If that money is taken by the government, it won't be used for that purpose.
And it hasn't worked so far. And what I'm seeing is that the vast majority of the job creation and the innovation in this country has come from small businesses, the very people that are going to be taxed. And I think right now what we need to do is return that money back to the businesses. 80% of the people that are going to be taxed on this are going to be the small business.
All right, final comment from Congressman, because just procedurally, how does Congress go about now reconciling what happened today with what the Senate is likely to do and what the president is likely to sign? How will all that affect our taxes?
My guess is that the Senate will have some procedural move, again, playing more political games. But right now, the president's representatives is sitting down with House and Senate Republicans and Democrats, actually trying to find a real solution on this issue. Until they come forward, all of this is political theater, and we're wasting a lot of time, and that tax bomb continues to tick.
So should Brett expect his taxes to go up on January 1st?
I tell you what, I worry the Democrats are going to allow that to happen, but I can tell you Republicans are going to fight like everything to make sure that doesn't happen.
Kevin Brady, Brett McMahon, and our panel we will hear from later on. Thank you very much.